Picture the scene, stoppage time at the Parc des Princes. Chelsea are already being torn apart on the scoreboard. 4-2 down and the clock ticking away what little hope remains. And then, in the middle of all that pressure, in the middle of all that desperation, Pedro Neto does something that shifts the entire conversation away from the football itself. He pushes a ball boy, not a shove in the heat of a tackle, not an accidental clash of bodies, a deliberate push of a young ball boy who was holding onto the ball as Netto tried to take a quick throw in. The boy went to the ground. PSG players reacted immediately. A melee broke out involving both sets of players and staff. And suddenly, a terrible night for Chelsea had found a new level of terrible. That moment right there is where we need to start tonight, because what happened in those few seconds is now triggering a chain of events that could directly affect Chelsea's squad for the second leg. The consequences are real. The timeline is tight and the situation deserves a proper, clear breakdown. So let us get into it. Before we go any further, let us be absolutely clear about what was at stake the moment that incident happened. Chelsea are already 5-2 down on aggregate after just one leg of this Champions League round of 16 tie. The second leg is coming. The club needs every single player available if they are going to attempt any kind of miraculous turnaround at Stamford Bridge. Losing Pedro Neto, a winger who was one of Chelsea's brightest performers even in defeat, to a UEFA suspension would be a significant blow to whatever slim hope remains. Beyond the second leg, the situation also puts Chelsea under a spotlight they do not need right now. There are questions about the manager, there are questions about the defence, and now there is a disciplinary cloud hanging over one of the club's key attacking players. This is not just about one push. This is about a club that is already under pressure, being forced to manage yet another crisis at the worst possible time. If this kind of deep analysis on stories that actually affect Chelsea's season is what you are here for, hit that subscribe button right now. The channel is Maya on Chelsea, and we break down every story that matters, every angle, every implication. Do not miss a single video. Now, back to Paris. Let us go step by step through everything that happened and everything that is now unfolding because of it. The incident itself occurred in the 92nd minute of the match. Chelsea were already trailing by 2 goals and the tie was effectively slipping away. Netto wanted to take a quick throw in, the kind of desperate hurry-up play that teams make when they are chasing a game and time is running out. The ball boy, however, was not handing the ball over quickly enough for Netto's liking. What followed was not a gentle nudge. Netto physically pushed the ball boy, who fell backward and hit an advertising board. The reaction from PSG's players was immediate and fierce. Both sets of players and staff got involved in the confrontation that followed. It was, by any measure, an ugly scene. Now, here is something important to understand about what happened with the officials on the night. Netto was not sanctioned by the referee at the time. The incident was reviewed by VAR, and following that review, he came away without a card. That is a significant detail, because the fact that the referee and VAR did not act does not mean the matter ends there. In UEFA competitions, the governing body retains the right to open their own disciplinary proceedings after the fact. And that is exactly what has now happened. UEFA confirmed on Thursday, the day after the match, that they have formally opened disciplinary proceedings against Pedro Neto. A decision on the case will be taken in due course. Those are the confirmed facts. What comes next is still to be determined, but the process is now officially underway. So what could the punishment actually look like? Keith Hackett, a former chief of PGMOL and a FIFA referee with deep experience of how these disciplinary panels operate, addressed this directly. His assessment is that the UEFA Disciplinary Panel will investigate the incident thoroughly. He described Neto's behaviour as clearly disrespectful toward the ball boy and noted that the incident tarnishes the image of UEFA's competition. That framing matters. UEFA takes the image of the Champions League seriously, and incidents that generate negative headlines around the competition tend to be treated with a firm hand. Hackett indicated that if Netto is found guilty, the player can expect a fine and a ban. However, and this is an important nuance, the severity of the ban will depend on Neto's existing record with UEFA. If his disciplinary record in European competition is clean, that works in his favour. If there are previous incidents on record, the panel is likely to take a harder line. The exact details of Neto's UEFA disciplinary history are not yet known in terms of what the panel will find, but that background check will be a central part of how they arrive at their decision. What is certain is this: UEFA has acted quickly. The proceedings were opened the very next day. That suggests this is not being treated as a minor, borderline incident. The governing body has looked at what happened and decided it warrants a formal response. Now, on a human level, Netto himself did not hide from what he did. He spoke after the match and was direct about it. He acknowledged the push. He said that with the emotions of the game, with Chelsea losing and time running out, he wanted to pick up the ball and gave the boy a push. He said he saw that the push hurt the boy in some way. He gave the ball boy his shirt. He apologised. He spoke to the boy directly, and his Portugal international teammate Rosinia helped bridge any communication gap to make sure the apology was understood. Netto was also clear in stating that the behaviour was not representative of who he is as a person. He said he is not like that. He expressed genuine regret. Manager Rosinia also apologised on behalf of the club in his post-match press conference. He said that if anything from Chelsea's side was wrong or out of order, he was sorry. That shows a club that at least handled the aftermath with accountability. The apology from the player, the apology from the manager, and the gesture of giving the shirt all speak to a genuine attempt to make things right on a personal level. But UEFA does not operate on personal gestures alone. The disciplinary process will run its course regardless of the apology. The governing body's concern is the image of the competition and the safety and dignity of people working around the pitch. A ball boy is there in a professional capacity to support the smooth running of the match. Being pushed to the ground by a player, regardless of the circumstances, is a serious matter. And this is where the timing becomes particularly painful for Chelsea. If Netto receives a one-game ban, which is one realistic outcome Hackett pointed to, the question becomes, which game does he miss? Could he miss the second leg against PSG? That decision will depend on how quickly UEFA concludes their proceedings and when exactly the ban would take effect. The club is now in a waiting game on that front, and it is a wait that adds unnecessary tension to an already difficult situation. Chelsea also face Newcastle in the Premier League before that second leg takes place. So there is a domestic fixture in between. The scheduling of the ban, if one is issued, becomes a critical question for Rosinia as he plans both his Premier League campaign and whatever approach he takes into that second leg. Now, let us talk about the broader picture of what that night in Paris revealed about this Chelsea side. Because the Netto incident, as dramatic as it was, should not completely overshadow what actually happened on the pitch for 95 minutes. Chelsea were beaten 5-2 by Paris Saint-Germain in the first leg of their Champions League round of 16 tie. That is a heavy defeat by any standard. It means they need to score at least 4 goals at Stamford Bridge while keeping a clean sheet, or essentially outscore PSG by 3 goals with no goals conceded, just to force extra time. That is an enormous ask. The 5th PSG goal, which completed the damage, came from Kuvica Kvaratskhelia. He came on as a substitute and scored twice in the closing stages, the second of those arriving 4 minutes into stoppage time to make it 5-2. Those late goals highlighted a problem that has been mentioned repeatedly in relation to this Chelsea side. The defensive organisation and concentration over the full 90 minutes, and particularly in the final stages of games, is not where it needs to be. Chelsea defender Malo Gusto spoke openly after the match and questioned the decision not to sit back when the game was level at 2 goals each. His view was that the Blues were too ambitious in their approach during that phase of the game. That is a significant public comment from a player. It suggests there is a real conversation happening within the squad about the tactical decisions being made. At 2-2, most coaches in that situation at the Parc des Princes in the first leg of a Champions League knockout tie would be thinking about consolidating and protecting the result. Going home at 2-2 gives you something to work with in the second leg. The decision to push forward and remain expansive led to conceding 3 more goals in a devastating collapse. That is not just a bad result. That is a tactical decision that will be scrutinised heavily. Now, there is a counter-argument being made, and it comes from a credible voice. Micah Richards, speaking on his football analysis platform, gave a surprisingly positive assessment of Rosinia's management. His view is that Rosinia is tactically impressive, that he sees something in the way Chelsea play under him that suggests the manager genuinely understands how to set a team up to hurt opponents. Richards pointed specifically to the way Chelsea were able to open PSG up during the match. He noted that when PSG were on the back foot at certain moments, Chelsea's build-up play and the way they created width and runners from midfield showed real tactical coherence. He highlighted the performances of Enzo Fernandez, João Pedro and Cole Palmer as evidence that Rosinia is getting things right in terms of the attacking structure. His view, stated directly, is that Rosinia is cooking. That is his phrase. And he backed it up by pointing to the style of play, the willingness to go through the middle and then exploit wide areas, and the runners arriving from midfield as a system that has real potential. However, even Richards, who was genuinely positive about what he saw, acknowledged that the defensive side of the game needs serious work. He gave the example of the goal where Hakimi burst through and a Chelsea defender went all the way in when the smart play was to stay composed and hold the line. He said that is the kind of defensive error that costs elite teams in elite competitions. His conclusion was that Rosinia has the tactical intelligence, but certain aspects need to be corrected. And critically, he noted that the proof will ultimately need to come in results. You cannot just play good football and lose. At some point, the style needs to translate into trophies or significant progress in competitions. Rosinia himself has lost 4 games in his 16 matches in charge of Chelsea. The losses have come against Arsenal, who were the only side Chelsea had previously lost to before this PSG result ended that run. Now PSG have joined that list in the most emphatic way possible. The situation at the club is genuinely interesting from an analytical perspective. There are clear signs of individual improvement. João Pedro is producing some of his best football. Enzo Fernandez is performing at a high level. Cole Palmer is returning to something closer to the form that made him so dangerous earlier in his Chelsea career. Netto himself, before the incident in stoppage time, had one of Chelsea's better individual performances in Paris. But the defence is going backwards by certain assessments. The goals being conceded, the way those goals are coming, and the comments from within the squad about tactical decisions all paint a picture of a team that is still finding its identity and making costly errors in the biggest moments. There is also the separate matter of Chelsea's pre-match huddle ritual that has now come under scrutiny. Under Rosinia's management, the Chelsea starting 11 has adopted a habit of forming a huddle around the centre circle before kick-off. This has been happening across several recent matches and has started to generate frustration from opposition players and fans. The concern, and it is a legitimate one, is that this ritual is being used to delay kick-off. Keith Hackett addressed this directly when asked about it. His view is that there is a significant commercial dimension to match timing in the Premier League. Television schedules, advertising commitments and the precise timing of kick-offs are tightly managed. If a pre-match ritual is causing kick-off to be delayed, that creates a real problem for broadcasters and for the league itself. Hackett's assessment is that the Premier League needs to have a conversation with Chelsea about this. He described it as gamesmanship. If a kick-off is being delayed, referees are required to file a report as an extraordinary incident. His view is that if the delays continue, the authorities will move to address it and Chelsea could face some form of sanction or, at minimum, a formal warning from the Premier League. Now, it is important to be precise here. The key qualifier is whether the huddle is actually causing a delay to kick off. If it is happening before the whistle is due and it is not costing time, that is a different matter. But if referees are filing reports noting delayed kick-offs connected to this ritual, that is a pattern that the authorities will want to stop. This is the kind of detail that flies under the radar in the immediate aftermath of a 5-2 defeat, but it is exactly the kind of background issue that can add up over a season. A club already dealing with a UEFA disciplinary case for one player does not need additional scrutiny from the Premier League on top of it. So when you step back and look at Thursday, the day after the PSG match, this is where Chelsea are. One of their key attacking players is facing a UEFA ban that could affect the second leg. The club is playing in the Champions League round of 16, but trails 5-2. Questions are being asked publicly by one of their own players about tactical decisions in Paris. The manager has defenders from outside the club, notably Micah Richards, but also faces legitimate criticism about how the defence is being set up. And there is an ongoing question about a pre-match ritual that could bring the club into conflict with the Premier League. That is a lot to manage at once. The next match is against Newcastle. Then comes the second leg against PSG at Stamford Bridge. Both of those fixtures now carry a weight beyond just the 90 minutes on the pitch. The Newcastle match gives Rosinia an opportunity to demonstrate he can get a positive result in the league and steady the ship before the European tie. The PSG second leg is effectively a must-win situation, though even winning would require something extraordinary given the aggregate score. And behind all of it, the Netto disciplinary case is running in the background, with UEFA moving at their own pace toward a decision that could directly affect Chelsea's squad availability for that second leg. The situation is genuinely serious, not catastrophically so. Chelsea are a club with quality in the squad. The performances in Paris, even in defeat, showed moments of genuine attacking intent. But the margins for error at this level are tiny, and right now Chelsea are making errors on multiple fronts simultaneously. On the pitch, off the pitch, in stoppage time before kick-off, in the stands where ball boys are getting pushed to the floor. Every one of those things matters, every one of them adds up, and every one of them tells you something about the state of this football club right now. The reality for Chelsea is that the next 10 to 14 days are going to define a significant portion of their season. How Rosinia responds to the PSG defeat, whether Netto receives a ban and misses the second leg, whether the pre-match huddle situation gets resolved quietly or escalates, whether the defensive issues that Gusto and others have pointed to get addressed in training before Newcastle. The evidence from Paris suggests this is a team in transition, capable of brilliance in moments, but not yet consistent enough or organised enough defensively to compete over a full game against the elite sides in Europe. Whether that changes is the central question for Rosinia. And the clock is ticking. That is the full picture for tonight. Every confirmed fact, every official action, every statement made by the people involved. No speculation, no guesswork. Just the analysis. If you found this breakdown useful, subscribe to Maya on Chelsea and hit the notification bell. We cover every story that matters to this club at the level of depth it deserves. Share this video with any Chelsea supporter who wants to understand what is actually happening beyond the headlines. The next video is coming, do not miss it.